I never thought I'd be the kind of person to expose family secrets at my own wedding, but sometimes karma needs a little push. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my designer wedding dress. Tomorrow I'd either become a Zimmerman or tear their whole facade apart, maybe both. I'm Karen, and in less than 24 hours, I'm supposed to marry the love of my life, Liam. He's perfect, kind, supportive, and somehow managed to grow up decent despite his family. The Zimmermans are old money, the kind that fills country club lounges and charity galas with fake smiles and backhanded compliments. "You look stunning," my best friend Haley said, helping me with the final fitting. "Elise is going to hate it." "When doesn't she?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Speaking of the devil, Liam's sister burst into the bridal suite without knocking, her perfectly manicured hands clutching her phone like a weapon. "Karen, darling," Elise's voice dripped honey-coated venom. "Mother wants to know if you're still insisting on that unique ceremony set up." I met her eyes in the mirror. "Yes, Elise. The ceremony will be exactly as planned. It's just not how we do things," she sighed dramatically. "The Zimmerman weddings have always been traditional, stuffy, boring," Haley cut in, making me bite back a smile. Elise's nostrils flared. "Well, I suppose we can't expect everyone to understand our standards." Her eyes raked over my dress. "At least the gown is acceptable, though Mother still thinks the Vera Wang would have been more appropriate." "Good thing it's not her wedding then," I replied sweetly. After Elise finally left, Haley turned to me. "I still can't believe what they did to your family's company." "Neither can I." I smoothed down the silk of my dress, remembering the day I found those documents in Liam's father's study. The truth about how the Zimmermans had systematically stripped my grandfather's business, leaving nothing but scraps for my father to inherit. But tomorrow will change everything. My phone buzzed, Liam calling. "Hey, beautiful," his warm voice filled my ear. "How's the final fitting?" "Perfect," I said, watching Haley pack up the dress. "Your sister just stopped by to spread her usual sunshine." He sighed. "I'm sorry about Elise. She'll come around eventually." If he only knew. "Don't worry about it. How's the rehearsal dinner planning going?" "Mother's driving the catering staff crazy, but what else is new? Dad's hiding in his study with a scotch, and I'm counting the hours until you're officially my wife." My heart squeezed. "I love you, Liam." "Love you too. See you tonight." "Wouldn't miss it." After hanging up, I turned to Haley. "Sometimes I feel guilty about what I'm going to do to his family." "Don't," she said firmly. "They've had this coming for years. Remember what your dad went through? The depression, the drinking." I did remember. All too well. "I know, it's just Liam's different." "Then trust that he'll understand when the truth comes out." Haley zipped up the dress bag. "You have the documents ready?" I patted my purse. Everything. Bank statements, old contracts, emails. 20 years of systematic theft, all neat and tidy. "And you're sure about doing this at the wedding? What better time to remind them about family loyalty?" I smiled, but it felt sharp on my face. Besides, they've spent months making me feel like I'm not good enough for their precious son. Might as well prove them right. Later that evening, as I drove to the rehearsal dinner at the Zimmerman estate, I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked exactly like what they wanted. Perfectly groomed, designer outfit, every hair in place. The perfect trophy wife for their golden son. But underneath, I was my grandfather's granddaughter. The man who built an empire from nothing, only to have it stolen by people he trusted. Tomorrow the Zimmermans would learn that karma doesn't forget, and neither do I. I pulled up to their mansion, where Veronica, Liam's mother, was already waiting on the steps. "Karen, darling," she called out, air kissing my cheeks. "That color is interesting on you." I smiled, remembering the documents in my purse. "Thank you, Veronica. I learned from the best about making interesting choices." She missed my meaning completely, ushering me inside where the rest of the family waited. Liam's face lit up when he saw me, and for a moment, I almost wavered in my resolve. But then I caught Elisa's smirk from across the room, and I remembered why I had to do this. Tomorrow, everything would change. The perfect wedding would become the perfect revenge. And the Zimmermans would finally learn that some bridges, once burned, light the way to justice. The night before my wedding should have been filled with butterflies and last-minute jitters. Instead, I was standing in my hotel suite, staring at the shredded remains of my wedding dress, while Elisa's perfectly practiced look of shock was making my blood boil. "Oh my God, Karen, what happened?" Her voice wavered with fake concern as she stood in the doorway. "Did someone break in?" I touched the torn silk, my fingers tracing the jagged cuts that had destroyed months of alterations and thousands of dollars of craftsmanship. The scissors had been thorough. This was no accident. "Cut the act, Elise," I said quietly. "I saw you on the security camera." Her face froze for a split second before morphing into confusion. "I don't know what you're talking about. I just came to bring you Mother's pearl hairpiece." "The one you're not even holding," I interrupted, pointing to her empty hands. Haley burst into the room, took one look at the dress, and immediately pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Don't bother," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "That's exactly what she wants. Chaos, confusion, a reason to postpone the wedding." Elisa's mask slipped, revealing a flash of the spite beneath. "Well, you can hardly get married now, can you? No dress, less than 12 hours to go." She shrugged delicately. "Maybe it's a sign." "You really think a dress is going to stop me from marrying your brother?" I laughed, and the sound made her step back. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, Elise." "Is everything all right? I heard voices." Jasmine appeared in the doorway, gasping when she saw the dress. "Holy shit. Call my dad," I told her. "Ask him to bring Grandma Rose's dress from the attic. You know, the one we restored last summer." Elisa's smug expression faltered. "What? You didn't really think I wouldn't have a backup plan, did you?" I stepped closer to her. "I've been watching you plot and scheme for months. The sabotaged bridal shower, the lost invitations to my family members, the seating chart, mistakes." "I don't know what—" "Save it," Haley snapped. "We have security footage of you entering with scissors 20 minutes ago." Elisa's composure cracked completely. "You don't deserve him. You're nothing but a gold digger who—" "Who what?" I challenged. "Who discovered how your family really made their fortune? Who has proof of every dirty deal your parents made?" Her face went white. "You're lying." "Am I? Want to bet your trust fund on that?" The room fell silent except for Jasmine's quiet voice as she spoke to my dad on the phone. Elisa's perfectly lined lips trembled. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "It would destroy Liam." "The truth has a way of doing that," I agreed. "But unlike you, I trust him to handle it." "I'll tell him about the dress," she threatened. "About how you set me up." "Go ahead," I gestured to the security camera in the corner. "I'm sure he'd love to see the footage." Jasmine hung up the phone. "Your dad's on his way with the dress, Karen. He'll be here in 30 minutes. "Perfect." I turned back to Elise. "You should go. I'm sure you need time to prepare your explanation for tomorrow." She fled the room, her designer heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. As soon as she was gone, my knees gave out and I sank onto the bed. "Holy shit," Haley sat beside me. "I knew she was crazy, but this—" "Are you okay?" Jasmine asked, examining the ruined dress. "I'm fine," I assured them. "Actually, I'm better than fine. This is perfect." They both stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Think about it," I explained. "Grandma Rose's dress isn't just any dress. It's the one she wore when she married my grandfather, before the Zimmermans destroyed everything he built. What better outfit to wear while I expose their lies?" "You're scary sometimes," Jasmine said admiringly. "You knew Elise would try something like this, didn't you?" I nodded. "She's predictable when she's desperate. And after what I let slip at the rehearsal dinner about having some surprising family history to share tomorrow, I knew she'd panic." A knock at the door made us all jump, but it was just the hotel manager, looking distressed. "Ms. McCormick, security called about an incident." "Everything's fine," I assured him. "Just a little family drama." Could you make sure the security footage from the last hour is preserved? We might need it. After he left, Haley squeezed my hand. Are you sure you want to go through with tomorrow? The revelations, I mean. I looked at my ruined wedding dress, thinking of my grandfather's face when he realized he'd lost everything, of my father's years of struggling to rebuild. More than ever, I said firmly. Elise just made it personal. Tomorrow, the Zimmermans learn that karma comes in a vintage dress. While waiting for my dad to arrive with Grandma Rose's dress, I showed Haley and Jasmine the letter that had started it all, the one I'd found 3 months ago, while helping Liam organize his father's study. I still can't believe you found this just lying in a drawer, Jasmine said, carefully unfolding the yellowed paper. Jeffrey must have been drunk when he filed it, I explained. He usually keeps everything locked in his safe, but this... I pointed to the signature at the bottom. This was his victory lap. Haley leaned in to read aloud. Dear Jeffrey, congratulations on successfully acquiring majority control of McCormick Industries. The systematic dilution of Robert's shares through our series of shell companies worked perfectly. He never suspected his own lawyer was working for us. My grandfather trusted that man with everything, I said, the familiar anger rising. He was family's lawyer for 20 years. And he was on the Zimmermans' payroll the whole time, Jasmine finished, shaking her head. A knock at the door interrupted us. My dad had arrived with the dress. His eyes widened at the sight of my destroyed wedding gown. Jesus, sweetheart, he whispered, carefully laying the garment bag containing Grandma's dress on the bed. Are you sure you don't want to postpone? No, Dad. I hugged him tight. Actually, there's something I need to tell you. Over the next 20 minutes, I explained everything, finding the letter, the months of secret investigation, the paper trail of fraud that had destroyed our family's company. All this time, he said finally, his voice rough, I thought Dad had made bad investments, that he'd gambled everything away. I was so angry at him. That's what they wanted you to think. I showed him the documents I'd gathered. They orchestrated his downfall perfectly. The Zimmermans didn't just steal the company, Dad. They stole his reputation, his legacy. Does Liam know? Not yet, but he will tomorrow. Dad ran a hand through his grey hair. Karen, honey, are you sure about this? Once you do this, there's no going back. I'm sure about Liam, I said firmly. He's not like them. Remember last Christmas when he found out Elise had deliberately excluded our family from the holiday party? He made her apologize and reorganize the whole thing. That's different from finding out his family destroyed ours, Haley pointed out gently. Maybe, I admitted, but he deserves to know the truth. And Grandpa deserves justice, even if it's 20 years late. We all turned to look at Grandma Rose's dress. Dad carefully unzipped the garment bag, revealing the ivory lace and delicate beadwork we'd spent last summer restoring. Mom would be proud to see you in this, Dad said softly. She always said you had Rose's spirit, more like her stubbornness, I smiled, touching the lace sleeve. Remember how she used to say, the truth always rises like cream? And the sour milk sinks to the bottom, Dad finished, chuckling. Then his face grew serious. What do you need me to do tomorrow? Just be ready, I said. I have copies of everything, the letter, the bank records, the shell company documents. When I give the signal during my toast, Haley will distribute them to key people in the room. Jasmine, who had been examining the ruined designer dress, spoke up. What about Elise? She's not going to sit quietly once she realizes what's happening. Let her make a scene, I shrugged. The more she protests, the guiltier they'll look. Dad pulled out his phone and showed me a text. Gerard just messaged me. He's flying in for the wedding. My heart skipped. Gerard had been my grandfather's best friend and business partner, another victim of the Zimmerman scheme. He got my email, says he wouldn't miss it for the world. He's bringing the original partnership agreements. Perfect, I breathed. The final piece. As my friends helped me try on Grandma Rose's dress, I caught Dad wiping his eyes. You okay? I asked softly. Your grandmother wore this dress the day she married my father, he said. They had nothing but dreams and determination. The company they built together. It was their legacy to us. Tomorrow, You're not just wearing her dress, sweetheart. You're carrying their truth. The dress fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting all these years for this moment. Standing there in my grandmother's lace, surrounded by people who knew the real story, I felt stronger than ever. Tomorrow, I said, meeting each of their eyes in turn, the Zimmermans learn that some legacies can't be buried, and some granddaughters don't forget. Haley raised an imaginary glass, to Karma in vintage lace. We all laughed, but there was steel beneath our smiles. In less than 12 hours, I would walk down the aisle in my grandmother's dress, carrying 20 years of hidden truths. The Zimmermans thought they'd written the ending to this story long ago. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The church fell silent as the heavy wooden doors opened. I stood there, my arm linked with my father's, watching the Zimmermans' faces as they registered what I was wearing. Veronica's perfectly arranged smile cracked. Jeffrey's hand tightened visibly on his wife's shoulder, and Elise, dear, scheming Elise, went absolutely pale. But Liam's face lit up like a sunrise. Is that? I heard Veronica whisper to Jeffrey as we passed their pew. Rose's dress, Jeffrey confirmed, his voice tight with recognition. The vintage lace caught the light filtering through the stained glass windows, creating patterns that danced across the aisle as we walked. Each step felt like a declaration. I'm still here. We're still here. When we reached the altar, Liam took my hands in his eyes shining. You look incredible, he whispered. But what happened to the other dress? Ask your sister, I murmured back, just loud enough for the first row to hear. I saw Elise shift uncomfortably in her bridesmaid's position. The ceremony proceeded perfectly. We'd practiced it enough times. But there was an undercurrent of tension in the air, especially when we reached the part about speaking now or forever, holding your peace. I half expected Elise to object, but she remained silent, probably still hoping to prevent my reception speech. I do, Liam said clearly, sliding the ring onto my finger. I do, I echoed, meaning it with all my heart, despite what was to come. As we turned to face our guests, I caught sight of Gerard in the back row, giving me a subtle nod. The documents were ready. The photographer was arranging us for family photos when Veronica finally cracked. I must say, Karen, that dress is quite dated. What happened to the lovely gown we had fitted? Oh, didn't Elise tell you? I smiled sweetly. Someone broke into my suite last night and destroyed it. Thank goodness for family heirlooms, right? Destroyed? Liam's head snapped toward his sister. Elise, what did you do? Nothing, she protested quickly, too quickly. I just went to deliver Mother's hairpiece and... The hairpiece you never brought, I interrupted. Should we review the security footage? There's security footage, Jeffrey cut in sharply. Of course, I replied. The hotel takes their guests' safety very seriously, unlike some people's regard for family legacy. The photographer cleared his throat awkwardly. Should we continue with the photos? Actually, Liam said, his jaw set, I'd like to know what's going on. Elise? She's lying, Elise burst out. She's trying to ruin everything. She's not good enough for this family, and that dress, that horrible old dress, belonged to my grandmother Rose, I finished for her. You remember her, don't you, Jeffrey? And the company she built with my grandfather. The colour drained from Jeffrey's face. Behind us, the photographer quietly backed away, sensing the mounting tension. This isn't the time, Veronica hissed, trying to maintain her composure. We have guests waiting. Yes, we do, I agreed, including Gerard O'Connor. You remember him, surely? Grandpa's former business partner. Jeffrey's head whipped around, spotting Gerard in the crowd. The two men locked eyes, and 20 years of secrets seemed to crackle in the air between them. Liam, I turned to my new husband, whose confusion was giving way to concern. There's something you need to know, about your family, about mine, and about this dress. Karen, Jeffrey's voice held a warning. Think very carefully about what you're about to do. Oh, I have, I assured him. I've thought about it for 3 months, ever since I found your victory letter in the study. What letter? Liam demanded. Dad, what's she talking about? Veronica tried to salvage the situation. Perhaps we should move to the reception. All this drama is most unseemly. No, Liam cut her off. I want to know what's going on. Right now, I squeezed his hand. And you will. During my toast. I turned to face the Zimmermans. I think it's time everyone knew exactly how your family acquired its fortune, don't you? The photographer, who had apparently found his courage, chose that moment to call out, "Perfect! Hold those expressions, please." The camera clicked, capturing the moment perfectly. Liam's dawning realization, Elise's panic, Veronica's barely contained rage, and Jeffrey's fear. And me, in my grandmother's dress, finally ready to unveil the truth. "Shall we?" I gestured toward the reception hall. "Our guests are waiting, and I have quite a story to tell." As we walked, I heard Veronica whisper furiously to Jeffrey, "Do something." But it was too late. The truth, like my grandmother always said, was about to rise to the top, and I was wearing its legacy. The crystal champagne glass felt cool against my palm as I stood for my toast. The reception hall hushed, all eyes turning to me. Haley and Jasmine had already quietly distributed the manila envelopes to key guests. Gerard, my father, Liam's Uncle Robert, who'd always been sympathetic to our family, and several business associates who'd been caught in the Zimmermans' web of deceit. When I first met Liam, I began, my voice steady, I was struck by how different he was from what I'd expected. You see, I grew up hearing stories about his family's business success. I paused, meeting Jeffrey's eyes. Fascinating stories about how they acquired their fortune. Veronica's hand tightened around her wineglass. Elise started to stand, but her mother yanked her back down. My grandfather used to say that success comes from hard work and integrity, I continued. He built his company from nothing, alongside his wife Rose, whose dress I'm wearing today. I gestured to Gerard in the back. Would you stand up, Gerard? Many of you might remember him as my grandfather's business partner. Gerard rose slowly, his face grim. Several older guests murmured in recognition. 20 years ago, my grandfather's company was worth millions. It employed hundreds of people, supported countless families. And then, mysteriously, it all fell apart. I took a sip of champagne. Or perhaps not so mysteriously. "Karen," Jeffrey's warning voice carried across the room, "this is hardly the time." "Actually, it's the perfect time," I countered. "Everyone, please open the envelopes in front of you. Inside, you'll find some interesting documents about how the Zimmerman family really acquired their wealth." The rustle of paper filled the air. Liam, seated beside me, grabbed his envelope with trembling hands. "What you're looking at," I explained, "is evidence of a systematic fraud orchestrated by Jeffrey Zimmerman. Bank records showing payments to my grandfather's lawyer, who was secretly working for the Zimmermans. Documents proving the creation of shell companies used to dilute my family's shares. And most damning of all, a letter celebrating their success in destroying my grandfather's legacy." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Liam's face had gone ashen as he read. "Dad," his voice cracked, "is this true?" Jeffrey stood abruptly. "This is preposterous. These documents could be forged." "They're not," Gerard's voice boomed from the back. "I was there, Jeffrey. I watched you destroy my best friend's life, and I've kept copies of everything." "You see," I continued, my voice cutting through the growing chaos, "the Zimmermans didn't earn their fortune. They stole it. They manipulated, deceived, and destroyed lives to get where they are." "Enough!" Veronica shrieked, standing so quickly her chair toppled backward. "You ungrateful little—" "Mother!" Liam's sharp voice silenced her. He turned to me, his eyes full of pain and confusion. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I needed you to see them for who they really are," I said softly. "Just like they finally showed themselves last night, when Elise destroyed my wedding dress." "Security footage," Elise blurted out, jumping up. "She claims to have security footage, but where is it?" On cue, Jasmine pressed play on her tablet, and the hotel's security video began projecting onto the reception hall's wall. The footage clearly showed Elise entering my suite with scissors, then leaving 20 minutes later looking satisfied. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Liam watched the video, his face hardening with each second. "Well," he said finally, standing to address the room, "it seems I owe my new wife's family an apology. And my own family," he turned to face his parents, "owes them so much more." "Son," Jeffrey started, but Liam cut him off. "No, Dad, no more lies." He took my hand. "Karen, what do you want?" I stood, facing the Zimmermans. "I want justice. I want my family's company restored to what it should have been. I want the truth acknowledged, and I want reparations made to everyone your family has hurt." "Or what?" Veronica spat. "Or these documents go to the SEC, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the country," I replied calmly. "Your choice." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Gerard stood again, walking to the front of the room. "Robert would be proud of you," he told me, then turned to face the crowd. "I was there when the Zimmermans began their takeover. I've spent 20 years gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. Karen found me 3 months ago with proof of her own, and together, we're ready to set things right." I raised my glass one final time. "To truth, justice, and karma. May they all be served at exactly the right moment." The room remained silent, all eyes darting between me and the Zimmermans. The ball was in their court now, and by the look on Jeffrey's face, he knew it. Sometimes, the perfect wedding toast isn't about love at all. Sometimes, it's about justice served cold, wrapped in vintage lace. The next hour was chaos. Guests whispered and pointed as Jeffrey practically dragged his family into the hotel's private conference room. Liam insisted on having Gerard and my father present, while Haley and Jasmine kept the reception running smoothly, telling guests we were handling a family matter. "Let me get this straight," Liam paced the conference room, still in his wedding tuxedo. "You deliberately destroyed Uncle Robert's company, a man who trusted you." "It was business," Jeffrey insisted, loosening his tie. "The market was different then." "Business?" My father's voice shook. "My father died thinking he'd failed his family. He drank himself to death because of what you did." Veronica sniffed. "He was weak. If he couldn't handle—" "Mother!" Liam slammed his hand on the table. "Stop talking, right now." I laid out the documents one by one. "Here's my offer. First, you'll transfer 51% of the company's shares back to my family. The percentage you stole through your shell companies." "Impossible," Jeffrey sputtered. "The board would never—" "The board," Gerard interrupted, "will do exactly what they're told when they see these documents, unless you'd prefer them to learn about it from the FBI." Elise, who'd been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Daddy, just give them what they want. We can't let this get out." "Second," I continued, "you'll create a fund to compensate all the employees who lost their pensions when you deliberately bankrupted the subsidiary companies." "That would cost millions," Veronica protested. "Less than what you stole," my father pointed out. "And finally," I met Jeffrey's eyes, "you'll publicly acknowledge what you did. No more letting my grandfather's name be dragged through the mud." The room fell silent. Liam had stopped pacing and was staring out the window, his shoulders tense. "You have 24 hours to decide," I said, standing up. "After that, these documents go public." "You'd really destroy this family?" Veronica asked, her voice bitter. "Your husband's family? You destroyed my family 20 years ago," I replied calmly. "I'm just balancing the scales." "Liam," Jeffrey appealed to his son, "surely you can't support this blackmail?" Liam turned around slowly. "Blackmail? You want to talk about crimes, Dad? How about fraud, conspiracy? Should I go on?" "We did it for you," Veronica burst out. "Everything we did was to secure your future." "No," Liam's voice was ice. "You did it for yourselves, and now you're going to make it right." He walked over to stand beside me. "Accept Karen's terms, or I'll deliver the documents to the authorities myself." Elise gasped. "You'd betray your own family?" "Like you betrayed Karen last night," Liam shot back. "Or like our parents betrayed her family years ago. Seems betrayal runs in our blood, doesn't it?" Jeffrey slumped in his chair. suddenly looking old. You don't understand what this will do to us. I understand exactly what it will do, I said. It will cost you money, pride, and your carefully constructed image, just like what you did to my family. The difference is, Gerard added, you'll still have millions left. Robert lost everything. My father pulled out his phone. I have the SEC's number right here. Your choice, Jeffrey. The tension in the room was suffocating. Veronica clutched her husband's arm, whispering furiously in his ear. Elise had started crying silently. Finally, Jeffrey spoke. We'll need our lawyers to review the terms. Fine, I agreed. You have until this time tomorrow, but one condition, you go out there right now and tell everyone the reception is over. I won't have my wedding turn into a circus for damage control. And Elise, Liam added, you'll publicly apologize for destroying Karen's dress. But, she started to protest. Now. Liam's voice left no room for argument. As the Zimmermans filed out, Veronica paused at the door. You've won, Karen. I hope you're satisfied. This isn't about winning, I replied. It's about justice. Something you wouldn't understand. After they left, Liam pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I had no idea. I know, I said, holding him tight. That's why I married you anyway. Gerard cleared his throat. The hard part's coming, you know. They won't go down without a fight. Let them fight, Liam said firmly. It's time for the truth to come out. My father hugged us both. Rose would be so proud seeing you in her dress, fighting for what's right. I touched the vintage lace of my grandmother's dress, thinking of all it had witnessed today. 24 hours, I said. Then either justice gets served or the truth gets set free. Either way, the Zimmerman's perfect facade was finally cracking, and through those cracks, the light of truth was beginning to shine. The next morning, exactly 23 hours after our ultimatum, my phone rang. It was Jeffrey. We'll do it, he said without preamble. But we need to meet, now. The hotel's conference room felt smaller in the harsh morning light. I sat between Liam and my father, still wearing yesterday's makeup, while Gerard set up his laptop to record everything. Jeffrey and Veronica arrived with their lawyer. Elise trailed behind them, looking like she hadn't slept. Before we start, Jeffrey's lawyer spread out some papers. My clients have some conditions of their own. No, I said firmly. This isn't a negotiation. You either accept our terms or the documents go public in... I checked my watch. 57 minutes. Let's hear them out, Liam suggested quietly. Jeffrey cleared his throat. First, we want a non-disclosure agreement. What happens in this room stays private. Absolutely not, my father snapped. The truth about Robert needs to be known. We'll compromise, I offered. You publicly acknowledge your role in the company's downfall, but we keep the specific details of the fraud private, as long as you comply with everything else. Veronica nodded stiffly. Their lawyer made some notes. Second, Jeffrey continued, we want assurance that once this is settled, there won't be any further demands. That depends entirely on you, Gerard replied. Follow through with everything, and we're done. Try to cheat us again. He let the threat hang. I have the transfer documents ready, their lawyer said. 51% of shares to be returned to the McCormick Family Trust, effective immediately. And the compensation fund, I pressed. 20 million, Jeffrey offered. 50, my father countered. That's what those pensions would be worth today. 35, Veronica cut in. And we'll add a public apology. I looked at Gerard, who nodded slightly. Deal. As the lawyers worked through the paperwork, Elise suddenly stood up. I need to say something. Everyone turned to look at her. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her red eyes. I'm sorry about the dress, she said, her voice shaking. But more than that, I'm sorry I knew about all this and stayed quiet. Dad told me last year, when I found some old papers, I convinced myself it was justified. Why? Liam asked softly. Why destroy Karen's dress? Because she knew, I realized aloud. She knew I'd found out somehow, and she thought if she could stop the wedding. I thought I was protecting our family, Elise whispered, but I was just protecting lies. The lawyers finished their work, pushing papers across the table for signatures. One by one we signed. Jeffrey, Veronica, my father, me. It's done, Jeffrey's lawyer announced. The shares will be transferred by close of business today. The compensation fund will be established within the week. Now, Gerard said, pressing record on his laptop, the confession. Jeffrey looked physically ill, but he faced the camera. 20 years ago, I orchestrated the hostile takeover of McCormick Industries through fraudulent means. I betrayed Robert's trust, manipulated his assets, and deliberately destroyed his reputation. I acknowledge this wrongdoing and accept full responsibility. And the dress? Liam prompted, looking at his sister. Elise swallowed hard. I, Elise Zimmerman, deliberately destroyed Karen's wedding dress the night before her wedding. It was a malicious act, and I am deeply sorry. After Gerard stopped recording, the room fell into heavy silence. What happens now? Veronica asked, sounding lost. Now, I said, standing up, you start making amends. Not just with money, but with actions. The company will need restructuring to protect the employees' interests. Gerard will oversee that. And us? Liam asked quietly. Our family? That depends on all of you, I replied. The truth is out. What you do with it is your choice. Jeffrey stood slowly, looking years older than he had yesterday. I've spent 20 years protecting this lie. I don't know how to be honest anymore. Start by telling me everything, Liam said. No more secrets. As we left the conference room, my father pulled me aside. Your grandfather would be proud, he said, his eyes wet. Not just of getting justice, but of how you did it. What do you mean? You gave them a chance to make it right. That's more than they gave us. I watched the Zimmermans huddled together at the end of the hallway, Jeffrey speaking intensely to Liam, Veronica holding a crying Elise. They were broken, but maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild something real from the ruins of their lies. Sometimes, I said, remembering Grandma Rose's words, the truth doesn't just rise to the top. Sometimes it breaks everything open first. And then, my father asked, I touched the lace of my grandmother's dress, still hanging in my hotel room upstairs. And then we rebuild, together or apart, but always with truth as the foundation. The autumn breeze rustled through the cemetery as I laid flowers on my grandfather's grave. Behind me, Liam squeezed my shoulder gently. Ready? He asked. I nodded, turning to face the small gathering. My father, Gerard, and surprisingly, Jeffrey stood waiting. It was the first time Jeffrey had agreed to come here. The company's quarterly reports came in, Gerard announced, pulling out his tablet. Profits are up 40% since the restructuring. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Robert always said happy workers make better products. My father smiled. Looks like he was right. Jeffrey cleared his throat awkwardly. I've been reviewing some of his old business plans, the innovations he wanted to implement. They were years ahead of their time. That's why you targeted his company, I said, not accusingly, just stating a fact. Yes, Jeffrey admitted. I saw the potential and wanted it for myself. I never considered... He trailed off, staring at the headstone. Never considered he was a real person, my father suggested. With a family? Dreams? I'm sorry, Jeffrey's voice cracked. I know it's not enough, but I am truly sorry. A car pulled up to the cemetery gate. Veronica stepped out, followed by Elise. They'd been attending therapy together, working through their own guilt and complicity. The foundation papers are finalized, Veronica announced as they joined us. The Robert McCormick Innovation Fund will provide scholarships to young entrepreneurs and support small businesses affected by predatory takeovers, Elise added quietly. I touched my grandfather's headstone. He would have liked that. Karen, Elise stepped forward, holding something. I found this in Mother's attic. I thought you should have it. It was an old photograph of my grandparents on their wedding day. Grandma Rose in the dress I'd worn, standing proud beside my grandfather. They were so young, Liam observed, looking over my shoulder. They had nothing but dreams in each other, my father said. Just like you two. We have a little more than that, I smiled, thinking of the restored company, the foundation, the truth finally set free. The board meeting is next week, Gerard reminded us. First time both families will be working together officially. It won't be easy, Jeffrey warned. Nothing worth doing ever is, I replied. But we'll do it right this time. No shortcuts, no schemes. Veronica touched the photograph gently. Your grandmother was beautiful in that dress. I'm sorry I never appreciated what it represented. It represented everything you tried to destroy, I said honestly. But it also represented survival, resilience, just like now. Elise wiped her eyes. I keep thinking about that night with your dress. I was so angry, so scared of losing everything. And instead, you found something real, Liam finished. We all did. The breeze picked up, scattering autumn leaves across the cemetery. Standing there, surrounded by both families, I realized something my grandmother had tried to teach me. Revenge might be sweet, but redemption is sweeter. The company holiday party is next month, I announced. I think it's time we combine traditions, show everyone we're truly united. A fresh start, Jeffrey agreed. With old wisdom, my father added, nodding at the headstone. As we walked back to our cars, Liam held me back for a moment. You know what I love about you? He asked. You could have destroyed my family, but instead, you forced them to become better. I learned that from my grandfather, I said. He always said business wasn't about crushing competitors. It was about lifting everyone up. Smart man, Liam smiled. Think he would have approved of me? He would have loved you, my father called back, overhearing. Especially after you stood up to your family for what's right. The autumn sun was setting as we left the cemetery, casting long shadows behind us. But unlike the shadows of secrets that had haunted both our families for so long, these were clean and clear. Ready to go home? Liam asked. I looked at our families walking ahead of us, Jeffrey and my father discussing business plans, Veronica and Elise talking about the foundation, Gerard adding his wisdom to both conversations. Not perfect, but real. Not unbroken, but healing. Yes, I said, taking his hand. I'm ready. Sometimes karma doesn't just come to collect debts. Sometimes it comes to teach lessons, heal wounds, and build bridges. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes wearing a vintage wedding dress, carrying not just revenge, but the possibility of redemption. That's the thing about truth. Once it rises, it lifts everyone with it.